Hey everybody, Mariana with Three Peaks Classroom. In today's episode, we are going to dive into the brand new language arts curriculum for grade 3. It's my hope that this little video is going to give you a very good overview of the changes and things to expect in the language arts curriculum for grade 3. I'm not going to go too in detail just because you're probably going to get a lot of PD offered through your schools or through your divisions, but I just wanted to share this video from me to you based on my experience. I've pored over this document during the entire month of July, so I have a pretty good understanding of the changes and what to expect and some things to look out for. So yeah, let's get started. The first thing you're going to want to do is I highly recommend that you print off the document yourself. I will link it down below where you can find it, but I went ahead and I printed it myself, and you're going to see that I color coordinated all of the different themes. I just used my lovely Mr. Sketch markers. Gotta make it fun, right? So yeah, let's get started. So right off the bat, you're going to notice that the formatting of this curriculum looks different than the formatting that we had in our previous curriculums. And I actually do like the way that this format is laid out, but it's not immediately easily identifiable. But once I've had experience with it, I do like the way that it's laid out. So I'm going to talk about that really quickly. So each theme or each topic is organized by this organizing idea. So it's like this general idea, and you're going to see that general idea flow through grades 1 to 6. And then further down from that is kind of like a question that you're always going to be referring back to. And then you have your specific learning outcomes. And one thing that I like about the way that they've organized it is on this side are the specific skills that the kids need to be able to show. So these are your outcomes that you're going to be focusing on. But it gives you kind of like a synopsis of the understanding that you should be witnessing from your students. And then if you need a little bit of knowledge in order to teach these skills, they give you a quick little bullet points, like this is kind of what you need to know in order to teach the students the skills. And I love that. Something else that you need to understand is that the new curriculum for language arts, at least in grade 3, it has 8 general ideas or 8 big units. In the former curriculum, we had 5 general topics, but this time we have 8. And I have color coordinated them. So I highly recommend that you print off the document, like I said, and grab yourself some markers, and then join me as we are going to mark up this paper. I'm going to kind of give you some tidbits on things that you could be including in these units, and so you can write over all the pages, but I also number them, and I'm going to talk about that. So the very first unit, I'll use as an example. The general idea here is text forms or text structures. And so the general idea here is that students will get a really good understanding that fictional, non-fictional poems, everything that is written has a general structure to it. And so I've highlighted that very first sentence up here just so that I give myself that understanding. I also labeled it number 1. I went ahead and I highlighted every single one of the skills that I need my students to understand in this unit. And then each subsection I labeled as 1.1. And each outcome I labeled in that section from 1 to whatever in that section. So for example, if I reference something like 1.1.1, then you're talking about the first unit, the first subsection, and then the very first outcome. That's how I've organized it. Now your divisions might organize it a little differently, and they might teach you that way. Of course, you need to follow what your division does, but just for me, for my own personal understanding, this made the most sense for me to be able to easily reference an outcome. So if I say 1.1.1, you know that it's text forms, the first subsection, the first outcome. The very first unit is text forms and text structures. That's what I highlighted in red. And like I mentioned before, this is your students' understanding of, fictional texts can have a plot, and there can be a progression, or there can be circular plot structures, which is something new that we're teaching about in grade 3. You're also going to be teaching about nonfiction text structures. You're going to be teaching about text features, poem structures, haikus, limericks, all of that. Everything to do with text structures, or like why did the author write this piece in this way, that's all going to be covered in this first unit. If we flip to the second unit, you're going to see here I have it in orange now because I'm a sucker for rainbows. This entire second unit has to do with oral. So oral language or oral storytelling, oral stories, reader's theater, presenting, all of those kinds of ideas where it requires an oral language, that's all going to be covered in the second unit. This is a wonderful way to incorporate oral storytelling done in Indigenous communities, as well as knowledge keepers and elders, and how they can share traditions and stories that are passed down orally. This is also the outcomes where you're talking about group work and listening to others' opinions and formulating your own ideas based on other people's opinions, being able to reply to somebody based on what they have to say. There's also an outcome about being an audience member and listening to presentations and replying on a presentation. And of course, this is kind of where your Reader's Theater unit is as well. So being able to present like a dramatic story, or being able to memorize a short recital, like a poetry recital, that is all going to be covered in the second unit for oral storytelling. So the third unit is your vocabulary unit, or you can also kind of think of it as your spelling unit, but the focus here is on developing and acquiring vocabulary. So they're talking about developing tier 2 words and tier 3 words. So remember, tier 1 vocabulary is just conversational. Can you get by conversationally? Tier 2 are words that are, you know, a little bit more developed, and then tier 3 are very subject specific words. And so, you know, a hypothesis or photosynthesis, like those are very specific words that you would only use in a certain subject. So this unit is talking about developing tier 2 and tier 3 words. This unit also has an outcome where it's talking about developing vocabulary in one subject, but then recognizing that vocabulary across multiple platforms as well. So being able to make connections and recognize that, you know, certain words can have certain meanings as well, depending on the context that they're in. There's also a big focus here on base words or root words and suffixes and prefixes, and how that can change the meaning of a word. So again, a lot of wordplay happening in this unit, understanding, you know, the base word and what happens when you add a different ending to it, how it changes the meaning of the word. That's all encapsulated in this third unit, vocabulary. The fourth unit has to do with phonics. Now again, the assumption here for grade 3 is that students have had a very good development or understanding of phonics and phonemic awareness in grades 1 and 2. And in grade 3 now, they're taking all of that knowledge that they've learned and they are applying it in grade 3. So they're just kind of like tying up loose ends in terms of phonics. Some outcomes that are listed here are recognizing consonant clusters or digraphs, you know, or understanding that there can be letters that don't make any sound at all. You know, being able to figure out a way to spell longer, being able to decode longer multisyllabic words, and so being able to decode based on phonics or word families that they notice, and using phonetic strategies when they're reading longer text. So all of that is in your fourth unit in phonics. Your fifth unit is fluency. So I have this colored in blue. It's actually your smallest unit. There's only 4 outcomes here. But basically, fluency while you're reading, demonstrating that you can be a fluent reader, you know, gaining confidence while you're reading, being able to read increasingly complex text with accuracy and with confidence. That comes from this. And of course, your high frequency words or your word wall words, this is where the outcomes would be for that. Unit 6, this is all about your reading strategies that you're going to be teaching all of your wonderful grade 3 students. In this unit, we're talking about reading comprehension and understanding and being able to understand what you are reading. And so there are going to be outcomes like being able to make predictions or being able to infer what you are reading. Can you question along the way? Are you able to synthesize? Can you pull out what the main idea is of a text? There's also an outcome here that talks about, can you pinpoint the moment in a story where comprehension becomes difficult for you? And I like that. You know, it's like metacognitive. Can you figure out where you're stumbling? That check for understanding piece or cross-checking piece. So this unit number 6, this last subsection, 6.6, this is all metacognitive stuff. So it's understanding where in the part of the story are you losing focus, or where does it stop making sense to you? And it also is asking the students to identify which skills, which reading strategy skills are the most helpful for them in terms of understanding what they are reading. And then maybe they can lean on those skills as well. So I really like that 6.6. The biggest unit in the entire language arts curriculum for grade 3 is your 7th unit, which is writing. I'm just going to go through each block so you have an understanding of what each subsection is about. So 7.1, this is your writing process outcomes, and so being able to organize, draft your ideas, brainstorm your ideas, draft them, write them with a variety of forms and structures, creating different kinds of writing, so poetry or narratives or nonfiction writing, things like that. Can you edit your writing, spelling, punctuation, grammar, things like that? And what is the purpose of your writing? So being able to understand that. So this is all, the first section is all about the writing process. The next subsection, 7.2, this is all about your fictional narratives or writing your pieces for enjoyment. And so a lot of the outcomes are talking about, can you write a beginning of the story that has a creative beginning or different kind of sentence starters? Can you include dialogue? Can you include rich descriptive vocabulary? Can you create a thoughtful conclusion that ties up your story? But one thing I want to point out that I love about this new curriculum, 7.2, and the very last outcome in that section says that a student will persevere through challenges that arise in the creative expression process. And I love that so much because it teaches students that sometimes writers can get a writer block. And when you are writing something and you're stuck on an idea or you can't quite figure out how you're going to tie up your story, that it happens to everybody and it's normal, but you need to learn to persevere through that. And so teaching your students strategies on how to persevere through the writing process. Love that outcome. 7.3, this is your non-fictional writing, so your report writing. If your students are going to be writing a report about animals, let's say, to tie in the science curriculum. So it also teaches them to cite their sources, which I love because that is an important skill that they need to have. So, being able to organize your data, being able to write paragraphs, with a topic sentence and all that. That's all in 7.3. And then the last one, 7.4, cursive writing is still in the grade 3 curriculum and it is still only one outcome, just like in the last curriculum. But one thing I like about this is that they introduce, or they're talking about cursive, they're also talking about basic keyboarding skills, but there's also an outcome that says students will show proficiency in one way of writing. So either printing, cursive handwriting, or in typing. And I love that because we all have our personal preferences, and I like that it's asking the students to figure out what is their personal preference as well. The last and final unit in your grade 3 language arts curriculum is unit number 8. This is your grammar and conventions unit. I'll be honest, there's a lot more outcomes here, a lot more specific outcomes than there were in the previous curriculum, but a lot of it's pretty much the same. So, identifying subject and predicate in a sentence. Can you capitalize? Can you make sure that your sentences have a subject-verb agreement? Can you use quotation marks properly? Can you use punctuation properly? There's a big focus in this unit on possessives. So can students show the proper way of writing possessive words? There's also something new. We're teaching students about abbreviations, which is kind of exciting, something new. We're also teaching students about prepositions, which is not new. I mean, they should have learned it already in previous grades, but now it's a definite outcome in our grade 3 language arts. There's also an outcome here on recognizing that some words are not spelled in their predictable way, or there's words that are not spelled according to their spelling rules, so being able to identify those rule breakers. And there's also an outcome here about inflectional endings, and so those are your endings that you add ed or ing, and how does that affect the word. So a lot of new stuff here. I think I calculated, actually let me tell you, there are 133 outcomes altogether in this language arts program of studies. That is a lot more than the last curriculum that we had. I believe we had about 91 outcomes, I think. So that's a big jump. And before I wrap up the video, I did reach out on Instagram and Facebook asking you guys if you had any questions about the new program of studies. And Jessica reached out asking about the language arts program of studies specifically. So thank you, Jessica, for your question. But you were wondering about what kinds of writing units you wanted to wrap your head around that you needed to teach in grade 3. And so if you just take a look at your 7th unit, the writing unit, this is where all of your writing outcomes are going to be primarily. But in these units, you're going to want to teach fictional narrative, you're going to want to teach some poetry, some structured poetry, so a haiku, a limerick, or a couplet kind of idea. You're also going to want to teach your students how to do a report, so organizing their research into a report, including citations and references. You're also going to want to teach them a bit of structured writing, and so whether that is following a structure like a friendly letter or a newspaper article or a paragraph writing, where they have a topic sentence like that, that's all going to be covered in your writing unit, which is your 7th unit. Now, if that seems a little bit overwhelming to wrap your head around still, I do have a language arts notebook that's available in my TPT shop. My language arts notebook has 3 parts to it, and you can purchase them individually. I have a reader's notebook, or a reading strategies notebook. I have a writing strategies notebook, and I have a grammar and convention notebook. So if you're looking specifically for writing, my writer's notebook has all of the outcomes that you need for teaching for teaching grade 3. It goes through all the different units, so it talks about report writing, it talks about fictional narrative writing, talks about the different genres, sequencing words, punctuation, and every single topic that's in my writer's notebook or any of my language arts notebooks, they are all directly related to the program of studies. And so if I just take you to the reader's notebook, for example, the very first lesson in my reader's notebook is recognizing that students are readers, and the outcome here is listed 5.2.1. So you go to the 5th unit in your program of studies, and it's written in an ICANN student-friendly language. Every single topic in my writer's notebooks are related back to the program of studies. If you wanted something that's a little bit more organized and to the point, I also have my grade 3 year plan where every single language arts outcome in the new program of studies is listed in my grade 3 year plan. So I took the time to update it. Those of you that have already purchased it, you can just re-download it and you'll get the new year plan. But this is what it looks like. It's a month by month, or month at a glance, I should say. And so, for example, here is the plans that you would need for September. And I have all of your reading strategies listed, your writing crafts that you're going to make, phonics or word wall lessons, and your grammar lessons as well. So I have all of that listed for grade 3. Again, it's all directly related to the brand new program of studies. And I have other subjects that are listed as well. And if you purchase the year plan and you want an editable version, all you have to do is email me your proof of purchase and I will send you an editable PowerPoint where you can change anything that you want on the year plan. So that wraps up my language arts, going over the language arts program of studies in a nutshell. I tried to keep it as brief as possible just to give you a quick little overview of things to expect in grade 3. I hope you guys have a wonderful and successful startup back at the school year with the new curriculum. Don't forget to write your notes down because we are piloting the curriculum. The government is going to want your feedback on what things you liked and what things you didn't like. So don't forget to write down your notes. I would also love to hear from you, and I would love to hear your thoughts on the new curriculum, so you can leave me a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe. I'm going to be coming out with a math overview and a health and wellness overview as well, so stick around for that. Hope you guys are having a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.